Good evening, John.
Well, good evening to you, Miss Ashley. Looks like you're in the learning area of the Twitchell home.
Yep, we've got the girls down for bed, and we've got homeschooling central, craft station, and calendar and school priorities here.
Okay. What's the after-school activities like? Oh.
Yeah, after school is mom therapy.
Mom therapy.
Yep, and that's where I go out to my fire pit. I think we were out there last week.
That's right. Nothing wrong with a little therapy like that.
Yep, so homeschool, after school, Theology Thursday. Welcome to a conversation for this evening. I am Ashley Twitchell. We always forget to introduce ourselves. I'm Ashley Twitchell. This is...
I'm John Roy.
And that's a little different cup there, John.
This is from my mother's collection. My mother passed away years ago, and this is from her collection. You can see it's sort of vintage.
Looks like some sweet memories.
It is. You know, and that's the funny thing about keepsakes is that it's not the value of the cup, it's that it takes you to a certain place in your life and you can remember something.
Yeah, that makes me think of my grandma's house, just even seeing the glass.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so we did a Stump the Pastors poll, and we had some folks send in some questions. And the one that we're going to talk about tonight comes from a conversation that we had in email. And I'm going to share one of the comments that this person made, just so that we can kind of jump from there and get started.
This will be our foundation.
This is our foundation. So this person, in conversation about a few other things, said, I have really only recently found Jesus, as opposed to evangelical religion or even agnosticism. So that's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
How do you think we could even start?
Well, I'll start with a definition of agnosticism.
That's a good one.
Agnosticism is not atheism. Gnosticism or agnosticism is I don't know. You know, I don't know if there's a God. I am not so sure that I'm willing to say that there is a God, but I am equally unsure to say that there is no God.
Shoot, I've been there many times in my life.
So to be an agnostic is to truly be open to conversations and information. You're not closed-minded at all.
So what would you say, before we kind of go from there, but what would you then say is the difference with atheism?
Atheism is a conclusion. I've concluded there is no God. I've arrived at that with evidence in my studies and my research, and I've concluded that there is no God. So I'm closed.
So agnosticism is then just this open-ended, I'm really not sure.
Right. Mm-hmm. Now, why don't you tell us what American evangelicalism is?
Well, I'm not sure I could define that.
Okay.
Do you have an idea?
What were you going to say anyway? You were about to say something.
Well, I was just going to say, like, there's a big difference to me in what this statement gets at is there's a difference in having a relationship with Jesus and a personal sense of faith and having a relationship with a church community and being a part of an institution or an organization that claims to be part of religion. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I mean, this is going to be a wild conversation. This is going to go a lot of different directions. I mean, if I was to ask you, do you need to agree with your church to attend your church? You'd probably say, yeah. But here's an interesting tidbit of information. Catholicism does not believe in birth control. That's the official dogma of the church. That's the doctrine of the church. 86% of the people that go to a Catholic church believe in contraceptives. Okay? So they have a relationship with God, but their relationship with their church is an entirely different thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that gets at the heart of kind of where we're going with this, is that there's a big difference in having a personal sense of faith and a personal relationship and being full-fledged, like diehard into institutional or organizational religion. And kind of my argument going into that is God is God. And my sense of faith is a connection directly with God. There's no intermediary. Like we can have that relationship, and that's one-on-one and intimate. I don't have to count on anybody else for that. But then you have institutional church or organized religion or whatever you want to call it, and that's man-made. There's a huge difference in that. We have to be careful because our whole profession and call and career is dependent on that. But I think we both would agree that we could easily work ourselves out of a job.
Yeah, I don't know how loud we want to say that, but you and I do agree on that. And if you listen to the morning devotions that I do, you hear over and over again the theme that Jesus was trying to bring about a religion of the heart.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted. And that's what he was trying to reform out of Judaism, that they had gotten off the rails. And you're right. As Joanne, my wife, will tell people, John's been freeing people from religion for 30 years and working himself out of a job, and he's still got a job.
Well, I think like that's the thing about this comment that really struck me is I've really only recently found Jesus as opposed to evangelical religion or even agnosticism. There's a huge difference in having a relationship of faith and knowing God and knowing Jesus and being dependent on a religion or an institution or an organization to tell you. I mean, there's so much brokenness in the church that there's days and years and times that I would never want to be a part of the church. I mean, you can pull up any media source and see plenty of stories that would make you lose your religion. I mean, I think I've lost my religion plenty of times.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thankful that there's this opportunity to have a direct relationship as opposed to be dependent on that.
Right. I think that we hold on loosely to religion and we hold on tightly to our God.
Sure.
The living, breathing relationship we have with God.
Well, and the important piece to remember too, though, and this is where I talk ourselves back into a job, is that religion, in the sense of religion is man-made, religion and organized church and denominations are all human-driven. We're all human leaders. I think both of us would acknowledge that we do that with extreme humility. We do that with a sense that we do not have the answers. We do not have this sense of more knowledge or better than or
holier than.
privilege. I don't even know where to go.
Yeah. Well, you're right. I mean, and I don't know if you're trying to say that we're unique like that, or that I know of some leadership in congregations who are very prideful and who do. I mean, the whole premise of their work is that they're giving people answers. They want people to become dependent upon them. They want to build a fortress and for you to feel like you have to be a part of this colony to be a part of God's kingdom. And I've been freeing people from that religion for a long time to say, no. You can have a living, breathing relationship with God, and you don't need me to cross into that relationship. You can do it. You're competent. God's willing. It is available. Now, the most honest question now is, well, what is the church good for?
Well, and that's kind of where I was going, was down this path of, okay, well, if I can do it on my own, why should I be a part of religion or community or institutions if you're here saying that they're broken?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the answer to that is that God calls us to community. And where we deepen our sense of this personal connection is through the relationship that we have with a community and the relationship that we have with other people. So that in those times when we really aren't sure, in those times where I would claim to be agnostic, I have a community who lives and breathes God's love for me and who holds up that other end of the relationship when they're really holding up my end of the relationship, because God's never going to abandon that. God's going to be on his side all the time. But when I'm questioning where I am and when I'm uncertain, I need that community to provide that steadiness and that reassurance and that relationship and kind of show me the way to carry me through that.
What I would add to that is that I can get in these tight circles of saying the same thing over and over again. And one of the tight circles that I'm in for the last decade has been that read the Bible and you'll see the plural more than you'll see the singular. It's our Father who art in heaven. Part of being a part of the community is that we come together and it forms us. It shapes us. No, we don't need this to get to God. But this somehow shapes us into being what God wants us to be, and we come out better because of the sandpaper of each other. And you and I are a good relationship or a good example of that.
Well, I'm sitting here wearing my youth mission trip shirt. Anchored Youth. This is our shirts from our mission trip. I can't help but think that a community has shaped and formed the children and the youth. Right. And, yes, they have their own relationship, but as they're learning what that relationship is as they're learning what God means to them and how God interacts with them, they need people. They need others to show them and embody that for them. And so I would say that that's where we get the sense of, as broken and hard as it is, organized religion and institutional church, if you call it that. Those sound pretty cold, but they're really pretty personal and personable. That's where the weight comes in that God works through these relationships and through these people to help offer us some perspective and offer us some examples of the love and the grace that we have in that direct relationship.
Mm-hmm. I've had great examples of retired ministers around me. At Pelham Road, Dr. Rich, before that, Spencer LeGrand, and James Hartley, and now R.B. Cooper. And at my previous congregation, I had the same. I won't call any of their names because it won't mean anything to the people that listen to this. But I think one thing I've learned from them is that, you wonder, what will you do when you're an aging minister like me and you think, well, when I'm done with this, I'm going to be done with it. You say that. You think that. You say, man, it'd be nice to have a Sunday off. It'd be nice to be able to take a long weekend. And it will be. But here's the thing that I've learned from these men. And, well, I know women in ministry too, a lot of them, but they're not retired yet. The thing that I've learned is that I got to be tethered to something. You know what tetherball is?
Mm-hmm.
If the ball is tied to the pole, and then life just punches the ball every day, but because it's tethered to the pole, it comes back home. It comes back to that tethered place, and it is rooted there, and it's okay. I feel like if I was not a part of a community of faith, I would be untethered. Life would hit me, and I would roll down the hill and across the street and into the ditch. But because I'm tethered to a congregation, I get hit like everybody else, but I bounce out, and then I come around and I wrap around the pole and I start over. That makes sense.
It does. And John, I give you crap all the time about not being biblical and scriptural. And the biblical image for that is being anchored.
Oh, that's what that means.
Being tethered to an anchor. And it's the whole foundation of our youth. To be honest, John, that's been my kind of like personal verse. I have to be tethered to something. I have to be anchored. There's a verse in Hebrews that says, hope anchors the soul. That's been kind of my spiritual motto. And when you asked me if I would come work with you, and I said no, and then you said, well, our youth group is called Anchored. I was like, okay, God, I get the point. Sometimes we have to be humbled.
So there's a book of the Bible called Hebrews.
There is a book of the Bible called The Man Brewed the Coffee.
Does the Bible ever use the word tethered, or am I just making that up?
I think they use the word
anchored.
Anchored. So maybe we should end there before we go any deeper. But I do think that kind of goes to the point is, the whole point is that we have a personal relationship. I mean, the whole life of faith is about having that one-on-one, and it's a both and.
Well, if I could just go back to the gentleman's question, to go to agnosticism is to sort of be unanchored.
Sure.
And to go to, I think he called it American evangelicalism, but you could be Catholicism, it could be Protestant, it could be Pentecostal, any sort of church. But to put your trust in that is to be anchored to I don't know what, but you're it's like an anchor around your neck is what it is.
Yeah, there's a difference in knowing Jesus and having a relationship with Jesus and being tethered and anchored there versus to an institution and organization run by humans, which we own is broken.
Right. Well, I think that's a good place to start. I mean, stop. I think we've, unlike last week's question, I think we actually got this one.
Maybe we have a few 2 cents about this one.
Yeah, I think we got this one.
Well, thanks for joining us, and hopefully there was a little insight about both and having that personal relationship and still finding meaning and value and being connected to community, even recognizing that's man-made. We've got to have the God relationship and the human relationship both at the same time.
If I put my head down like this, you see that light above it? It looks like I have a halo.
I think that's the only way you will ever have a halo, John.
But you do see it, right?
You did cut your hair. You can't put horns up anymore.
But do take a picture of this, because that's a screenshot right there of me with a halo.
It will be recorded for eternity so that you can prove at some point in your life you had a halo.
Well, I've enjoyed this tonight, Ashley.
Have a good one. Enjoy homeschooling.
All right. See you next week.
Good night.